I was full professor and did research and did what all professors do, except that I also work holidays and weekends and nights and days and on vacation, which led to my burnout. I had to either literally die or take charge of my life. And what we used to say about work-life balance is get a hobby, do something different, death from overwork. And people in their 40s are dropping dead simply because they work from 7 to 11. It happens all the time. Well, that's where the boundaries come in. A lot of people blame their work addiction on the workplace or their boss. It just doesn't work that way. We always have the power within us to make choices and to set boundaries.
Welcome to another episode of Team Anywhere, where CEOs, leaders, and experts at building teams,
companies,
organizations,
and amazing cultures share how to lead from anywhere in the world. I'm your co-host on the East Coast, Ginny Bianco Mathis.
And I'm your co-host on the West Coast, Mitch Simon. And we invite you to join us to Team Anywhere. Hello and welcome to another episode of Team Anywhere. I'm your host, Mitch Simon, here on the West Coast. And today, we're thrilled to have Bryan Robinson. You may have heard of Dr. Robinson and his work as highlighted on NPR 2020, The Morning Show, and NBC World News Tonight. He is a founder and chief architect officer of Comfort Zones Digital, Inc. He's author of 40 books, including his most recent, which I have right here, Chained to the Desk in a Hybrid World, a guide to work-life balance and chill. Turn off your job and turn on your life. He is a professor emeritus at the University of North Carolina, where he conducted research on the effects of workaholism on marriage and children of workaholics. He hosted the PBS documentary Overdoing It: How to Slow Down and Take Care of Yourself. He maintains a private psychotherapy practice in Asheville, North Carolina, where he is right now, and resides in the Blue Ridge Mountains with his spouse, 3 dogs, 1 cat, several tropical birds, and occasional bears at night. Welcome to the show, Bryan. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Actually, we have more bears now than we've ever had.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Those bears are getting hungry.
They're hungry all the time. They love our garbage. And but you know what? We live in their space. They don't live in ours. So.
True. That's true. So let's start our conversation by asking a question we ask everyone. As you've navigated the COVID world and watched people in the workplace move to virtual and hybrid, what have you learned about yourself, and what have you learned about the other people that you work with?
Well, I've learned about myself how important people are in my life, and being removed from that at some point was nice, and I got a lot done, but I really miss being with people. And I think that social isolation was one of the biggest problems people were having, because as you probably know, mental health issues skyrocketed during that time and have continued to pretty much stay pretty high since the pandemic. Depression, anxiety, stress. And part of that was people working more at home, burning the midnight oil. And you would think if someone's working at home, they would be eating the chocolate cake in the fridge and doing the laundry while working. But what we found was people were overworking because they didn't have the boundaries. And so the other thing is the importance of boundaries in our lives. If you're living and working under the same roof, you've got to have a sense of separation, or it will swallow you whole.
Yeah, it definitely demanded on individuals to create boundaries for themselves, which was more difficult because nobody was looking. So it was just really, really completely up to you. So let's just dive in straight to your book. Seems like you're a very prolific author, and Chained to Your Desk in a Hybrid World: A Guide to Work-Life Balance. And I'm just interested first. What was the genesis of the book? what led you to writing this book? And I'm also interested in Chain Your Desk in a Hybrid World. Is this a title that comes of late because of all the hybrid, or were you thinking about this before the pandemic?
Well, I was thinking about it before the pandemic because it originated from my own personal experience with the lack of boundaries with work and my own demise, if you will. When I was a professor at the university, I was full professor and did research and did what all professors do, except that I also worked on holidays and weekends and nights and days and on vacation, uh, which led to my burnout, of course. And I had to either literally die or take charge of my life. And, you know, uh, sometimes when the worst things happen to us, it can be the best things that happen to us. It's one of those paradoxes in life. And so as it stared me in the face, I realized, I'll give you an example. I was with my family on vacation once, and they put their foot down and said, "You're not working on this trip." And so, like any normal workaholic, I sneaked my work like an alcoholic would sneak a drink when they're told they can't drink under the spare tire and in my jeans. And once I got there, and everybody said, "Let's go walk on the beach," I pretended I was going to rest and sleep, and they thought that was great. And I watched them leave. As soon as they were gone, I pulled out my work project and worked feverishly until I heard them coming back. And then as they came in, I pretended I'd been sleeping, and I would yawn and stretch, and which sounds, as I say it to you now, pretty sick, which it was. It is a sickness. Work addiction is a sickness. If you're a true workaholic, you cannot turn it off, or at least you can, but you don't know how. And what we used to say about work-life balance is get a hobby, uh, do something different, meditate. Well, you tell that to someone who is a workaholic, and it's like speaking Greek when you're English speaking. It makes no sense at all, and it's impossible to do. So, what I have learned in my own recovery is it's really about I'm looking at it from a neuroscience point of view. It's really about gas and brakes. If you drive a car, you know you will not get out of your driveway if you're all brakes. You got to have gas. But you will also learn that you will go off the cliff if you don't have brakes. So workaholics have a lot of gas, which is the sympathetic nervous system, the source of fight or flight and stress, and they don't have enough of what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the balance. That's the brakes. That's when you turn it off, you relax, you think of something else, you uh, develop self compassion, you learn how to treat yourself the way you love and treat other people. Um, and that's really what balance is. It's not just about going, it's not external, it's internal. And so we need boundaries outside of ourselves, but we got to have the boundaries on the inside. And so it's that's one of the ways that I think about balance.
Just for our own sake, like, is it that, how would I know I'm a workaholic? Is it because I don't have balance? Is it because I don't know when to turn it off? Because I work all the time. So I'm just trying to figure out when can I know that it's an issue?
Well, you'll get cues from people who love and care about you, your friends, colleagues, and family. And many times a workaholic will deny it, that I'm just working to provide a good life for you guys, which is partly true, but not totally true. The real truth is they may not even be aware that they can't turn it off, or they somehow denied that it's a problem and that it's just the way they are. So sometimes it takes a family complaining and drawing the line. Sometimes it takes health problems, whether it's psychosomatic or cardiovascular. We know there's a high correlation with overworking. In Japan, there's a name for uh, death by overwork. It's called kaloshi. I've learned to pronounce it correctly. Kaloshi means death from overwork, and people in their 40s are dropping dead simply because they work from 7 to 11. They're called 7-11 workers. In our country, we don't, for our um, vernacular English, we don't have a word for it. But it happens all the time. People drop dead from overworking in this country, and we call it heart attack. But and sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's because people work day and night, weekends, holidays, and vacations, and they will often say they're driven by a company or by an external source, when really, in fact, it's that little message in their brain that's driving them that says they have to, they must, and they can't turn it off. Once they're aware of that, there's a way to work with that little voice in their head, and it requires an outside lane of setting boundaries and an inside lane being aware when the workaholic is driving you instead of you driving it. Work is a great thing. It's not a bad thing. And a lot of people say to me, why? What's wrong with hard work? I'm not talking about hard work. I'm talking about people who work disproportionately to having an intimate relationship or taking care of themselves or being with their kids. And these are symptoms of the lack of intimacy, the inability to be intimate in a relationship, the inability to be there for your kids and your spouse or your partner, the lack of self care and working yourself to death, eating on the run, um, overdoing it, overloading yourself, the inability to play and let go and be spontaneous. Um, there's something called that I've developed called brownouts, which are equivalent to alcoholic blackouts. And it's when you don't remember conversations with your spouse or a friend or a colleague because your mind was working. And you ask that question again or you revisit it, and people will look at you with rolled eyes saying, we've just already talked about this, and you don't remember it. So those are a few of the symptoms of binging. Some people have told me they binge like an alcoholic and they sleep in their clothes and they wake up just like an alcoholic who's been binging with alcohol, or a drug addict for that matter. So those are some of the symptoms.
What about there's so many people who say and actually feel like, I absolutely love my work. I love the clients I work with. I'm so stimulated intellectually by the work. I actually enjoy that, working more than, let's say, playing golf or playing tennis. What would you say to somebody like that who is kind of really happy, enjoying the work that they do, maybe 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days, 7 days a week?
Well, it's not about the number of hours you work. It's about the inability to turn it off. So I love my work too. I love my work now more than I've ever in my life. But the difference now is I'm drawn. Before I was driven. And what I mean by that is the work addiction came from two sources. One was external demands made upon me by the wherever I worked, and also the little voice in my head that said I have to, I must, I should. I call that masturbation. That's a term coined by Albert Ellis, who's a famous psychologist. Because what we realize is we're putting pressure on ourselves. The difference in that, when you're drawn, it comes from a different place on the inside. It's not pressured. It's not a have to, it's a want to, and I get to, and I look forward to, and I'm making choices, conscious choices about how I live in my life. So it's great when people say they love their jobs. This is not about a lot of workaholics love their jobs, but if they look at the full spectrum of their lives, what's happening in their intimate relationship? What's, if they have kids, what's happening with that? Um, so sometimes the denial is there in their blind spots, and they're only focusing on their work. It can be workaholism can be very narcissistic. It can be you can get really self-absorbed. But if you're a true workaholic, the people around you are pulling their hair out and upset that you're not uh, investing in them in terms of your attention and your love and your care. Yeah, maybe financially, that's great, but that's not enough. That's not a relationship. And your friends wonder, where have you been and why don't I ever see you anymore? And ironically, if you work for a company, companies will often start to say, no, this is, you're pushing this too much. And I've had clients actually who have been either suspended or fired from a job because as workaholics, they require unreasonable goals for people who work under them, and they were burning people out. So it can backfire even in terms of the work that you do.
What would you advise to a leader who has a bunch of people under him or under her who just can't turn it off? Because the leader is being rewarded for results that he or she produces, and if she has a bunch of people under her that are just killing it. How do you talk to that when you're getting bonuses and you're getting accolades, and your people seem to love working?
That kind of describes my life. I was getting accolades, all kinds of stuff, but the people in my immediate life were not happy, and which made me not too happy if people closest to me are not happy. Um, if you're working for a workaholic, um, most people I know in most situations that I know where this has happened, the people are not happy because they are driven and they are pushed and they are overloaded and they're scolded, and that doesn't feel good. And it also affects the final product, whatever it is that your work turns out. What we know from the research is people who are workaholic actually often create more problems or slow things down as opposed to having the best effect because they're not team players. They tend to be very controlling. They have trouble letting go of projects and sharing it with other people. And because of in the final stages of workaholism, because of the problems with the mental health and the physical health, they have more sickness, more absenteeism. So it's not what it looks like on the surface. But if you work for a workaholic and you are unhappy, you can't fire them. But there are things that you either have to do if you don't quit. I don't recommend anybody quitting because they work for a workaholic unless it's really what really happens is people working for the workaholic start to show some of the same symptoms as a workaholic because it's not their um, natural way. And when you're not balanced, I don't care what you're doing and what you're turning out. If you're not doing it in a balanced way, there's a point at which you're a shooting star and you're going to crash. It happens all the time to people. But if you're leading a more balanced life, then and taking care of yourself, you're going to have a long career trajectory. And again, that's research based. That's evidence based.
Hey, we're taking a quick break to remind you to support our podcast by hitting the subscribe button and leaving us a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps us continue to bring you more engaging and thought-provoking content for leadership and remote work. Let's go back to your title, Chained to the Desk. What do I do if I think I'm a workaholic? Maybe I'm not workaholic, but I'm definitely working too much. How do I push it away? Like, how do I, because it's, this is for, before COVID, now during COVID, after. My laptop is so beautiful. It sounds so nice. I get a lot of reward out of working and people going, "Oh, Mitch, that's so great." I can wake up and my work is here. I can go lunch, my work is here. I can go out, I can come home, and 11 o'clock at night, my work it could be here. What is a person to do with it being so available? Like a drug, right? It's, alcohol is everywhere. It's on every street corner. Work is actually it could be in every room in your house. So what do you do?
Well, that's where the boundaries come in. A lot of people blame their work addiction on the workplace or their boss, and alcoholics tend to blame other people for their drinking. It just doesn't work that way. We can't blame the supermarket for food addiction, so we certainly can't blame the workplace. We always have the power within us to make choices and to set boundaries. One of the things about working at home, I kind of alluded to this a few minutes ago, is if I'm working at home, I personally think of my space where I am right now. Is I have a really big office downstairs away from the rest of the house. But it comes usually 5 o'clock, I imagine it's across town, 6 or 7 miles away. So I have this mental boundary. It's just not a place that I go to. I don't need to go there in off hours. And if I do, it has to be for a very good reason. It's an agreement I have. And my spouse and I have an agreement. We don't talk about work at meals anymore. It used to take over everything. So it's really about just asking yourself, what are the boundaries I need to set, either external or internal? The other thing that has really been important in my own recovery is present moment awareness. Mindfulness has become mainstream now, and it can really make a big difference in your internal life that spills over into your external life. So it's really about when we're working, we're usually in our head, and we're not in the present moment. We're in our head. But if you just take, and research bears this out, a few minutes to reset your brain every once in a while. I'm just saying a few minutes. I call them micro chillers. I talk about this in the book. Micro chillers are 3 to 5 minutes a few times a day where you just take time out and you just listen to the sounds around you, notice the people, the colors, maybe the wind of nature is a great way to do it. If you do that for 3 to 5 minutes, you're going to be more productive. You're going to be more clear-minded, and it's really going to pay off not only in your production but also in your mental health. So, as little as 3 to 5 minutes of what we call micro chillers or micro breaks, whether it's just getting up and stretching, walking up and down stairs if you're in an office, you can't go outside and it's bad weather, or looking out the window at a tree or the birds. It sounds so simple, but it really does reset your brain so that you can be better at what you do. And it brings balance.
Yeah, thanks for that. Are there any companies that you're familiar with or leaders that you're familiar with who are encouraging their teams or their entire company to have a more balanced approach to their desk and to work in general? And could you share that?
There are a lot more. And the top is Ariana Huffington, Thrive Global. All of her employees, I've actually been there to her office, and everything they do has to do with self-care first. They really practice what they preach. Their whole thing is thriving, not just surviving. So their environment is one in which they have sleeping cubes if they need to take a nap, while they're working. If they maybe were working the day before too much, or they had a sleepless night. Um, they have something called Thrive Time, and she talks about work-life integration, so that if you need to take time off during the day to take your kids to the doctor or go to a school event or a soccer game, you get to do that. And if you had a day before where you had to work a little bit of overtime to get something finished, you get to take time off on the next day. So it's a flexible work environment where no one is driving you and demanding, where you monitor yourself and do the things you need to do to take care of yourself first, like the oxygen mask metaphor. And this is the kind of thing that Thrive Global is all about. It's what they practice, and it's what they preach. And there's some, even before a meeting, they will have people take a few minutes and just go inside, all of the employees, and just get settled in. And so they're incredible. And there are others too, but I would say they're probably the best model right now.
Do you have any opinion, as managers or companies are asking people to go back to the office, let's say 1 to 5 days a week? Do you have any opinion on, given so much research we know about taking care of ourselves, self-care, is this going back to the office going to be a healthier move for employees or a less healthier move?
Well, if you look at the data, the research, there's a lot of research that's been done on this. Uh, it's not the best thing for the individual's mental health, because they're able to, everybody thought, well, they're going to be home, so they're going to be eating the chocolate cake and doing things, they're screwing up or screwing off. The truth is, they're getting more done. They are less stressed. They have more time. Uh, they are spending less time driving to the destination, buying clothes that they have to, dress a certain way. So it's really different, and they're calmer, and which is the whole idea of being able. Work should not have to be hurtful, painful, and stressful. It doesn't have to be. It should be something we enjoy, because you're going to do better at it. You're going to invest in it. You're going to be more engaged, more productive. Your performance is going to be higher, and you're going to stick around with that organization longer. One of the things we're seeing is people are leaving in droves. It's called the Great Resignation to begin with, because the pandemic started it. But now that you said they're being asked, well, actually, it's demanded that they're coming back. They're not being so that in and of itself reflects, the iron-fisted approach from the Dark Ages that no longer works. We know that that's a fact. We have so much evidence of that. When people are treated like objects and not like human beings, and when we lose the humanity, we lose productivity, we lose performance, we lose engagement, and then eventually we literally lose the people, because they're going to go to places where the newer innovative companies are really, and there are a lot of them putting this into practice, where they want people to take time off. They require them to take vacation. They care about them. They check in with them. They ask how they're doing. Yeah, that's really different, and that's what people are moving toward, and that's what employees are being drawn to.
Great. Well, Bryan, if you have that reference to that research, I'm sure our listeners would absolutely love that.
It's in the book. It's all in the book.
Oh, fantastic.
All this is in the book.
So let's talk about this as we wrap this up. Chained to the Desk in a Hybrid World, a guide to work-life balance. Where can we find out more about you and get a copy of this book?
My website is Bryan Robinson Books, www.bryanrobinsonbooks. I get it confused with my email sometimes. That's why I hesitate. Uh, that has everything about me, and it has some videos. Everything's free on there, and it has other books that you can take a look at, and a test you can take to see if you are a workaholic, and it will be electronically scored.
That is, wow. That's kind of I guess the most valuable part here. So you have a test on, can I check out if I am a workaholic, and
Yes.
hopefully what to do about it. And so BryanRobinsonBooks.com, and Bryan is with a Y, so it's Bryan. If you're not watching, but you're hearing an audio. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for coming out from Asheville, North Carolina. I heard it's a beautiful part of the country. I really appreciate it. I guess I'm going to go take a wellness break right now and get ready for my next podcast. Thank you so much, Bryan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mitch. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Good luck on your book. Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content from our podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share the video with your friends so they can join the conversation too.